Ladies and gentlemen, we live in a world obsessed with results. Success is glorified, failure is feared, but what if I told you there's one habit, just one, that makes failing impossible? Let me explain. When people ask me, Simon, what's the key to success? They're often expecting a tactic, a hack, a shortcut. But success, true, lasting success isn't built on hacks. It's built on habits. And the one habit that makes failure impossible is consistency. Not talent, not brilliance, not even passion. Consistency. See, talent may open the door, but only consistency keeps you in the room. Passion may get you started, but only consistency carries you through when the passion fades, which it will. Brilliance creates moments, but consistency creates momentum. In a world that's constantly chasing instant gratification and quick wins, the power of consistency is often overlooked. We live in an age where success is glamorized, where highlight reels dominate social media feeds, and overnight success stories are idolized. But behind every one of those overnight successes is often a decade of quiet, consistent effort. The truth is, consistency is the ultimate equalizer. It's the habit that doesn't care where you started, how much natural talent you have, or how many resources you begin with. It's the one habit that can take an ordinary person and help them achieve extraordinary things simply because they refuse to give up. When people think of success, they usually think of passion or intelligence or even luck. And yes, those things can play a role, but none of them matter without the willingness to show up, over and over again, whether the conditions are perfect or not. Consistency is not glamorous. It's not flashy. It doesn't grab attention, but over time, it quietly builds mastery, trust, resilience, and results. It's the steady heartbeat that keeps everything else alive. Consider a musician. A single performance may look effortless, even magical. But that magic is born from hours, days, and years of repetitive, often frustrating practice, playing scales, rehearsing parts that no one else will even notice. It's not the love of the music that gets them through that. It's the habit of showing up to the practice room every single day. That's consistency, and that's what transforms skill into excellence. The same is true in relationships, business, health, every area of life. You don't build a strong friendship or a loving partnership by doing one big, impressive gesture once a year. You build it by checking in, being present, being reliable, day after day. You don't get fit by going to the gym for 8 hours once. You get fit by going for 45 minutes consistently over weeks, months, and years. In leadership, it's not about giving one great motivational speech. It's about consistently modeling the values you talk about, showing up for your team, and making decisions rooted in trust and integrity. Over time, that consistency builds loyalty and culture. The challenge is, consistency isn't exciting, it's not loud, it's not rewarded immediately. In fact, it's often invisible. And because the results don't show up right away, people give up. They stop showing up when it gets boring or hard, or when no one's watching. That's the moment where most people fail, not because they weren't capable, but because they couldn't be consistent. But here's the beautiful part. You don't have to be perfect to be consistent. You don't have to feel motivated every day. You just have to commit to the process, not the outcome. You just have to decide that your actions today matter, even if the results don't show up tomorrow. Over time, small actions compound. Small habits become identities, and identities shape destinies. Consistency may not be the most exciting habit, but it's the one that changes everything. When you build your life around showing up, no matter what, you create momentum that is almost impossible to stop. That's when failing becomes impossible. Not because you never fall, but because you always get back up. Because the habit of consistency means you never stay down for long. And in the end, that's what separates those who succeed from those who don't. The decision to keep showing up every single day. In today's world, we're constantly being bombarded with quick fixes and life hacks. Everywhere you look, someone is offering 10 steps to success, or the secret shortcut to wealth, fitness, happiness, you name it. We've been conditioned to believe that there's always a faster, easier way to get what we want. But the truth is, there is no hack that can replace discipline. There is no shortcut that can outpace habit. Real, meaningful success is never built in a moment. It's built day by day, through intentional, repeated actions that become who we are. The reason we chase hacks is simple. We're human. We like comfort. We want results with as little resistance as possible. And in some areas of life, sure, a hack might save you a bit of time. Maybe it's a productivity tip or a clever tool. But when it comes to the things that matter, our character, our goals, our growth, there is no replacement for showing up and doing the work. Success is not a trick, it's a process, and that process is built on habits. Habits are the architecture of your life. They're the foundation upon which everything else stands. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. And those systems are just your habits, repeated consistently over time. If you look at anyone who's achieved something remarkable, you'll notice something interesting. They didn't just have ambition. They had structure. They had routine. They had the discipline to do what needed to be done even when they didn't feel like it. That's the power of habit. People often think of success as this dramatic moment, winning the game, closing the deal, finishing the race. But those moments are just the visible tip of the iceberg. What you don't see are the countless hours of practice, the daily choices, the mornings they got up early, the nights they stayed focused while others were distracted. Those moments of invisible effort are what separate winners from wishers, and those moments are created by habit. There's also a kind of peace that comes from relying on habit instead of hype. When you live by hacks, you're constantly looking for the next trick, the next secret, always feeling a step behind. But when you build your life around healthy, intentional habits, you're no longer chasing, you're building. You're no longer reactive, you're proactive. You're no longer desperate for the result, you're focused on the process. And the process is where growth lives. It's also where identity is formed. Every time you show up and keep a promise to yourself, you're not just checking a task off a list. You're casting a vote for the kind of person you want to be. One workout might not change your body. One writing session might not finish your book. But each one is a step forward. Each one is proof that you're becoming the kind of person who follows through. That's more powerful than any shortcut ever could be. In the end, you get to choose. Do you want fast or do you want lasting? Because hacks may give you speed, but habits give you stability. Hacks may create a spark, but habits build a fire that keeps burning. So if you're serious about success, not just the appearance of it, but the real, fulfilling kind, stop looking for shortcuts. Start building habits, because success doesn't come to the person who knows the trick. It comes to the person who chooses to show up again and again, long after the novelty has worn off. And that's something no hack can ever replace. Motivation is a powerful force. It can light a fire in us, spark a new idea, or push us to take that first step toward a goal. We all know that feeling, that surge of inspiration that comes after reading a great book, hearing an inspiring story, or watching someone achieve something incredible. In that moment, we feel unstoppable, ready to conquer anything. But here's the thing about motivation: it fades, it always does. And when it fades, if we don't have something stronger to fall back on, we stop. That's why so many dreams fizzle out. Not because people weren't motivated, but because they relied only on motivation to carry them through. That's where consistency comes in. Consistency is what remains when motivation runs out. It's the quiet, often unglamorous force that keeps you moving forward on the days when you don't feel like it. When the excitement has worn off, when no one's cheering you on, when progress feels slow or invisible. Consistency doesn't care about how you feel. It only asks one thing: will you show up today? That's what separates the people who finish what they start from those who quit halfway through. Not drive, not talent, just the simple decision to keep going, even without a spark. Think about the goals people set every new year. Gyms are full, journals are fresh, everyone is fired up, but by February, most of that motivation is gone. Life gets in the way, the energy fades, and because people were depending on motivation to keep them disciplined, they stop. But the ones who stick it out, the ones who make it to April, July, or the end of the year, are the ones who understood this truth. Motivation might get you started, but only consistency will carry you to the finish line. There's something deeply honest about consistency. It doesn't care about how inspired you are. It's not about intensity, it's about frequency. You don't have to go all out every single day, you just have to go. Some days, your best might be 100%. Other days, it might be 40%. That's okay. Progress doesn't demand perfection, it just demands presence. And when you build the habit of showing up, especially on the days when it's hard, you're building something far stronger than motivation. You're building resilience. You're training yourself to do the work, not just when it's easy, but when it's necessary. That's where real growth happens, not in the highs of motivation, but in the lows of discipline. Anyone can be enthusiastic at the beginning. That's easy. What's hard is staying committed when things aren't exciting anymore. When you're tired, when results are slow, when doubt starts to creep in, consistency is your anchor in those moments. It keeps you grounded. It reminds you of the promise you made to yourself, even when you don't feel like honoring it. The truth is, you won't always wake up excited. You won't always want to go to the gym, sit down to write, study, make the call, or lead the team. But if you've trained yourself to be consistent, you'll do it anyway. And that's what creates mastery, that's what builds confidence, not the rare bursts of inspiration, but the regular rhythm of showing up again and again. So don't worry if your motivation fades, it's supposed to. That's natural. What matters is what you choose to do when it does. Because in the long run, consistency isn't just more powerful than motivation. It's the reason motivation ever leads to anything real. When you lean on consistency, you become the kind of person who doesn't just start things, you finish them. And that, more than anything, is what builds a life of real success. Failure is one of the most misunderstood parts of any journey. We're raised to fear it, to avoid it, to treat it like a sign that something went wrong. But failure isn't the opposite of success, it's part of it. It's not a dead end, it's a checkpoint. The difference between people who ultimately succeed and those who don't is not that one group avoided failure. It's that they didn't stop when they hit it. They understood that failure isn't the final chapter, it's just a page in the story. When we treat failure as the end, we rob ourselves of what it's trying to teach us. Every setback carries information. Every mistake gives us insight. Every wrong turn shows us a little more about how to find the right path. But too often, we take failure personally. We internalize it. We say, I failed, and let that mean I'm a failure. And once we go there, it's easy to stop trying. But the truth is, failure is never about who you are. It's just feedback about what didn't work. Consistency is what changes the relationship we have with failure. When you commit to showing up every day, no matter what, failure stops being scary. It becomes just another part of the rhythm. You're not trying to be perfect anymore. You're just trying to stay in motion. And when you keep moving, even after falling down, you take away failure's power. It can't define you anymore. It just becomes something you move through, not something that stops you. Think about a child learning to walk. They fall constantly, over and over again, but no one ever says, well, I guess walking's not for you. No, the falling is expected. It's part of the learning, and the child keeps getting up because they don't yet believe that falling means they're not capable. They just keep trying, and eventually they walk, then they run. What would happen if we kept that same mindset as adults? If we stopped taking failure as a sign to give up and started taking it as a sign to adjust? The most successful people in the world have failed more than anyone else, but you rarely see that. You see the wins, the end results, the awards, but what you don't see are the drafts that were thrown away, the rejections, the failed products, the bad decisions. The late nights questioning everything, and yet they kept going. That's the difference. Not that they avoided failure, but that they accepted it, learned from it, and kept moving forward. Failure can feel heavy. It can feel disappointing, but if you step back, you'll realize it's also proof that you tried. It means you took a risk. You cared about something enough to go after it. That's something to be proud of, not ashamed of. Every attempt, even the ones that don't work, is part of the process of growth. When consistency becomes the habit, you no longer treat failure as a reason to stop. You see it as a moment to regroup, to recalibrate, to keep refining your approach. The goal stops being to avoid every mistake. The goal becomes to never stop showing up. And when you live like that, when you're more committed to the process than the outcome, there is no failure that can take you out. Because you won't let it, you'll keep walking, keep building, keep learning, and that mindset, one of resilience, curiosity, and consistency, makes you unstoppable. In that kind of journey, failure isn't a wall. It's a doorway, and you always have the choice to step through it and keep going. We often think of life in highlights, the big wins, the defining breakthroughs, the unforgettable moments. We're drawn to them. We chase them, and while those moments can be meaningful and even life-changing, they're not what creates long-term success. What truly shapes our lives is momentum. Quiet, steady, compounding momentum. Because moments may inspire you, but momentum sustains you. It's easy to get caught up in the energy of a big moment, a job promotion, a personal best, a standing ovation, a sudden breakthrough. Those things feel good. They give us a rush of validation, a jolt of pride, but they are fleeting, they pass, and if we're not careful, we begin to believe that our progress depends on chasing the next big thing, the next moment that makes it all worth it. But it doesn't. Real growth happens in the in-between, the days that don't get applause, the work no one sees, the choices you make when no one is watching. Momentum isn't loud, it's not flashy, it's quiet, subtle, and patient. It's built through small actions done consistently over time, reading 10 pages a day, going for that walk, showing up to work with intention, saying no to distractions, one small step after another. And the beautiful thing about momentum is that it builds on itself. At first, it feels slow, almost invisible. But like a snowball rolling down a hill, the more you keep it going, the more power it gathers. Over time, that slow start becomes unstoppable progress. This is why consistency is so important. It creates a rhythm, and in that rhythm, you build momentum without even realizing it. Suddenly, you're not relying on motivation or waiting for inspiration. You've created movement. And movement carries you even on days you feel off. Because once you've built momentum, it takes less energy to keep going. You're no longer starting from zero every day. You're building on something that's already in motion. Contrast that with the chase for moments. Moments can be powerful, but they don't sustain you. They're like fireworks. Bright, exciting, but gone in seconds. You can have a moment of brilliance, but if it's not backed by momentum, it fades. A great speech without daily preparation is just a fluke. A record-breaking performance without consistent training is an accident. One moment might open a door, but only momentum keeps it open. And here's something people often overlook. Momentum creates moments. Not the other way around. The big wins don't happen randomly. They're born from the build-up. The business deal that closed overnight, it came from months or years of trust building. The artist who suddenly went viral. They've been creating every day for a decade. The athlete who dominated on game day. They've practiced that moment 1,000 times behind closed doors. Momentum creates moments, not luck, not hype. That's why focusing on momentum is so powerful. Because it's something you control. You don't always control when the moment will come. You don't know when the breakthrough will happen. But you can control whether you keep showing up, whether you stay committed to the process, whether you're laying bricks even when it feels like no one notices. That's what makes success sustainable. So while moments can be beautiful, don't live for them. Live in the process. Lean into the rhythm of doing the work. Because that rhythm creates movement, that movement builds momentum, and momentum is the force that carries you forward, not just once, but again and again. It's the real engine behind every meaningful success story. When you understand that, you stop chasing moments, and you start creating them. There's a quiet kind of power in refusing to give up. In a world obsessed with speed, competition, and comparison, It's easy to feel like you're falling behind if success doesn't come quickly. But what if the real secret isn't being the fastest or the smartest or the most talented? What if the one thing that makes success inevitable is simply not quitting? Because the truth is, you can't lose if you don't stop. You can fail, yes, you can fall, you can go through seasons where nothing seems to work. But if you keep going, if you keep showing up, you give yourself another chance, and then another. And eventually, that persistence adds up to something that looks a whole lot like success. We tend to see quitting as something obvious, a dramatic ending, a clear giving up, but most quitting doesn't look like that. Most quitting is quieter. It happens when we slowly stop trying, when we tell ourselves it doesn't matter, when we let fear or frustration talk us out of continuing. It happens when we start listening more to our doubts than to our dreams. But here's the thing, if you still care, even a little, you can still win. If you can find the strength to take one more step, make one more attempt, or try one more time, you haven't lost. You've just paused, and that's completely human. Success, especially the kind that matters, rarely happens on the first try, or the second, or even the 10th. It's built in layers. Layers of effort, failure, learning, adapting, and persistence. The people we look up to, the ones who have made it, are usually the ones who simply refuse to stay down. They didn't avoid obstacles, they outlasted them. They didn't always feel confident, they just kept going anyway. And over time, they moved forward when others stopped. That's what made the difference. It's comforting, in a way, to realize that you don't have to win every day. You don't even have to win most days. You just have to keep showing up. You just have to stay in the game. Because the longer you stay in it, the more you learn. The more you grow, the more you improve, and slowly, you begin to build something solid. Something no one can take from you. Not because it came easily, but because you earned every step of it by not giving up. Even on the hardest days, continuing is a kind of victory. Pushing through doubt, failure, rejection, or exhaustion. That's where your character is forged. That's where you become resilient. That's where you prove to yourself that you're capable of more than you thought. And once you realize you've survived all the times you wanted to quit, you become unstoppable. Because now you know that even at your lowest, you didn't break. You bent maybe, but you didn't break. It's okay to rest. It's okay to take breaks, to reassess, to shift directions if needed. Persistence doesn't mean burning yourself out. It just means not giving up on the vision, the dream, the goal that matters to you. It means allowing yourself to have bad days without letting those days define your future. It means finding reasons to keep going, even if they're small. Every time you choose not to quit, you grow, you stretch, you evolve, and with each step, you move closer to what you're chasing. So even if it feels like it's taking forever, remember, you haven't lost because you haven't stopped. And as long as you keep going, success is still on the table. It's just a matter of when, not if.